Mount Baldy and the beautiful San Gabriel Mountains of Southern California. It's here on the weekends that the people from Los Angeles come out for recreation, to ski the mountain trails, to take the challenge of hiking on the mountain tracks. And at the base of these foothills, there's another track that has been a challenge for over 30 years. Drag racing, after all, was born here in Southern California. In the early days, they would drive their cars to the track and then race them down the strip. The car clubs would cheer on their champions, and that champion just might be driving that famous 32 Deuce Coupe. It was low-tech and high excitement, but boy, have things changed. The excitement is still there, even bigger. The technology is now high-tech and high dollars. Today, on Sports World, it's the 27th annual NHRA Cheap Auto Parts Winternationals.
This is NBC's Sports World, and today it's brought to you by Budweiser, the genuine article. Beechwood Age for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you. By the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. No matter how far you go, Goodyear takes you home. By Fran Bendix and Autolite, which are all quality products of Allied Automotive. And by Quaker State Motor Oil. When car-carrying people reach for the best, they reach for Quaker State Motor Oil.
Over 54,000 people have found their way to the Los Angeles County Fairgrounds for the season opener. Hello, I'm Paul Page. The challenge is so simple in concept, yet in reality incredibly difficult. You take an expensive, thoroughbred racing machine tended by mechanical geniuses, a driver with lightning-quick reactions, and more than a handful of courage. A quarter-mile asphalt strip. You get there as fast and as quick as you can, and if you do, you're the winner. Well, this race, this particular race, the Winternationals, comes after a winter of dreaming and design for those drivers and their crews. And so there always are some surprises, some plans that don't go exactly as planned. An example, even at this moment, the first round of funny cars is already finished, and the reigning world champion, Kenny Bernstein, already has his problems. Let's go to the hot pit area and Steve Evans.
And Paul, up until that point, Kenny Bernstein was having a dream of a season opener. In qualifying, he set a brand new world record at 5.48 seconds. No one had ever officially traveled a quarter mile quicker in a funny car. In the first round, even though he had a bye run, still a stellar 5.61 elapsed time. But when they got back to the pits, big trouble set in. Kenny Bernstein's crew has just discovered what every drag racer dreads, a spun main bearing in the engine. Kenny, one of the few things you can't fix.
No, you can't. You have to change engines, Steve, and you know, we don't happen very often to these cars, but we got one today. We got a heck of a lot of work to do.
And here you see the culprit, that main bearing, the dark one, and alongside it is what a bearing should look like in an engine in good condition. The big question now is, can they get it all put back together? Because the top fuel dragsters are on the pad. The funny cars will be up next.
We started with the second quickest top fuel field in history. And now we're in the second round of eliminations as Hank Endress faces Dick LaHaye, two longtime veterans.
The rules for top fuel dragsters, Paul, are pretty basic. Minimum weight, 1,800 pounds. Maximum cubic inches, 500. Nitromethane in the tank. The engines develop approximately 3,000 horsepower. I say approximately because they are so violent, there's truly no way to measure them.
Hank Endress, 25-year veteran in drag racing, 15 years in top fuel from Pennsville, New Jersey.
Dick LaHaye of Lansing, Michigan, has been racing even longer than Endress. His crew chief is his daughter, Kim. He won 2 races a year. Uh-oh, Paul, we've got a problem on LaHaye's car in the near lane. Apparently, the reverser transmission has failed. They're having to push that car backwards. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot of work, just 1,800 pounds. Remember, the clutch is trying to propel the car forward. It's like pushing back 3 tons.
In the meantime, Hank Endress sits and waits. The starter continues to watch. No rule covers this. They've gone back to the old system of pushing the car back to the line.
The one thing they can't do is inconvenience Hank Endress, and that'll be a call by the starter. At any time the starter feels Endress is building too much heat in the motor, and you can see the starter there, Buster Couch, saying, get that car to the starting line. Now it's the visor on LaHaye's helmet that will not snap. Kim comes in and tries to get that accomplished. It looks like there will be a two-car race, Paul.
Heat and power building up in both engines now as they bring them up to the line. That's LaHaye in the near lane. Endress in the far lane. They launch.
And it is a good start by Dick LaHaye. Late off the line, maybe rattled by all of that, was the #1 qualifier, Hank Endress, and he falls. A very tired Tim LaHaye.
Totally exhausted. A lot of hard work for Tim LaHaye. LaHaye through with a 537, 269 miles an hour to Endress's losing 558. Not a good start for either driver. You can see Endress in the far lane faltered on the start. LaHaye finally pulled the power on, pulled the lead at the start, and went right on to the victory. Let's go to Steve.
Well, Kim LaHaye usually sprints out of this truck, but this lady is tired. You don't work that hard on the starting line usually.
No, not normally. On the Smoky burnout, I'm not quite sure what happened yet, but it wouldn't go into reverse, so made the sprint out there and push it back. And I think I'll quit smoking now.
So Kim LaHaye, now down at the far end, will join her father and get the car ready for yet another run. Back at the starting line, it's Joe Amato as he's prepared to take on the snowman, Gene Snow.
And Paul, apparently Gene Snow and his crew have discovered some secrets over the offseason. His best qualifying effort ever in the #2 spot at 5.32 seconds. The oil man from Fort Worth, Texas, he races Top Fuel strictly as a hobby. Has no sponsors, doesn't care for any.
He faces Joe Amato, the 1984 world champion, the first man over 260 miles an hour. There is Amato sitting on the line in the near lane as he begins to roll up, ready to go. That giant engine cackles with power as Amato inches his way forward in this, the second round of Top Fuel. An indication of trouble on the other side.
Yes, Paul, apparently a fuel leak on Gene Snow's car. It looks as if they have it repaired. No, they do not. The starter says shut it off. The car is unsafe. Joe Amato will have a single run into the semifinals. But, Paul, you can bet he'll run the full quarter mile to try to get lane choice. Lane choice goes to the quicker driver from the previous round. Amato thunders through at a fine 5.47. A big speed, 267 miles per hour. For Gene Snow, even though he was the #2 qualifier, his day is done.
A fuel leak on the line cost Gene Snow the run and the day. Joe Amato poured the power on, trying to get lane choice in his next battle. Back in the hot pits.
Kenny Bernstein's pits to be exact, Paul, and here is the red-hot clutch, still retaining all that heat from the first round, being reassembled as this engine change continues. A big crew for Bernstein. He seldom does anything more but mix the fuel. Not today.
More Top Fuel racing coming up. Back at the Winternationals, you're looking at the crankshaft of Kenny Bernstein's old motor with badly scored journals. If they'd used this, it could have exploded. The new motor is being installed now. They almost have it back in.
And, Paul, again, there is thunder in the starting line areas. Round 2 of Top Fuel continues. And it's time for a pair of old warriors to get together. In the near lane is the driver the fans call Big Daddy. 3-time NHRA world champion, Don Garlits. Last year, he was the first to break the 270-mile-per-hour barrier. He has pioneered the enclosed cockpit, the small front wheels. Big Daddy, ever the innovator. The car campaigned out of his drag racing museum in Ocala, Florida. Just celebrated his 55th birthday.
He faces 52-year-old Phil Mullins, a former Mr. Alabama, an extremely versatile driver who beat Shirley Muldowney, the 3-time Top Fuel champion, in the first round. Let's go back and take a look at that race.
Shirley was in the near lane, Paul, and believe me, the smart money was riding on the pink car, as this is Phil Mullins' first season campaigning his own machine. Formerly was a hired driver. Off the mark first was Mullins by a couple of hundreds. Shirley immediately caught up, passed him, appeared to have it won, and suddenly there were problems, later diagnosed as a bad clutch. Mullins to the second round.
And as a result, he now faces this man. In the near lane, it is the Big Daddy, Don Garlits, who, unlike Shirley Muldowney, is using one of the new lock-up clutches. That's Mullins in the far lane, Garlits in the near lane.
And Paul, Big Daddy comes to the starting line with 4/10 of a second advantage over Bill Mullins as comparing the previous round time. Garlits has the whole shot. Now he powers out in front. Paul, this one is no contest.
The Big Daddy across at a 5:45, 266 miles an hour to Mullins, losing 6:28, 147. And the Big Daddy moves on. Technology marches on as this is the newest top fuel dragster to be seen on the circuit, driven by Darrell Gwynn, an amazing long machine coming up to the line with a young 24-year-old Darrell Gwynn at the helm. Gwynn is the defending champion here, and his car has been the talk of the pits. Steve has more.
A year ago, Darrell Gwynn won this race with a very simple, straightforward little family race car. Well, this year's machine is anything but simple and far from little. Take a look. This is the longest top fuel dragster ever built. The wheelbase is 25 feet. There are shorter city buses than this. Now, up front, Darrell has chosen to go with the aircraft-style front wheels pioneered by Don Garlitz. Very nicely streamlined with the fuel tank up front. Now, this is called a gurney flap, and it was added after shakedown runs proved that the car wanted a wheel stand about 400 feet out. Pretty scary. Some louvers here to reduce any pressure that may build up under the body. Now, because the car is so long, Darrell had it built very strong, and strong can mean heavy. This car is 300 pounds over NHRA's minimum weight. It's going to take a lot of horsepower to push it along. The canopy is completely enclosed, but for those of you who've become fond of that ritual handshake between Darrell and his dad, Jerry, not to worry. There's a little daddy door here.
Advancements in technology and in personality. He faces Dan Pastorini, the former NFL quarterback.
And earlier in round one, Pastorini met up with this man. This is Tim Morgan, who just made the transition from boat racing to asphalt racing. He found it to be a difficult one. He was in the 4 lane, Pastorini out in front, then Morgan loses traction, and watch what happens. Upside down, then back onto his wheels. A series of gyrations, a very unusual crash. But the good news in all of this is that Tim Morgan walked away after contacting the concrete wall very hard. He was okay.
Fortunately, Pastorini nailed the throttle and roared on past Morgan before the accident occurred. But now, as we look back toward the starting line, Dan Pastorini is ready, but they're taking him out of the car. Something wrong with Pastorini's machine.
Well, it's very unusual to see this much breakage in a championship NHRA event. More by-runs in the season opener than we saw all of last year. But what a break for Darrell Gwynn, and his father Jerry knows that as he shakes hands with the young man through that little door we talked about earlier and says, "Go on, kid, run it hard." Now, this is really a break, Paul, because Gwynn has been a little nervous about this car. Once the wheels stand half-track, he needs to settle down.
Pastorini stands to watch this run from the sideline as Darrell Gwynn launches hard and pours the power on. Across the line with a 5.40, 264 miles an hour. Considering Pastorini has been faster than that, Gwynn gets a real break. So let's go to the far end once again. Steve Evans is with Big Daddy.
Don Garlitz looking at his time slip after this run, and Don, satisfied with it?
No, it's not fast enough, quick enough.
What's it going to take to win?
He's a 30. Needs to run 30s. It's not doing it.
Okay, Don Garlitz intends to go back to the pits and hop it up a bit.
Garlitt's well aware that he has plenty of work to do before the semifinal round in Top Fuel. As they go to the semifinals, Dick LaHaye will have lane choice over Don Garlitz. And Darrell Gwynn will face Joe Amato, and in that run, Gwynn will have his choice of lanes over Amato. But now we're ready for the quarterfinal runs in Funny Car as Kenny Bernstein fires his engine. Now remember, this is a brand new motor in this car. The engine on the first run was in trouble. They changed it. They're now ready to run again. He's also using that lock-up clutch. Earlier, Steve Evans had a chance to look at it.
Paul, the latest technical breakthrough was discovered by Kenny Bernstein and his funny car crew and kept a guarded secret until recently. Their onboard computer told them that the drive shaft at the finish line was turning slower than the engine. That could only mean one thing. The clutch was slipping. Now, here was the traditional funny car or top fuel clutch. Okay, it has 6 centrifugal pressure arms, and inside there are 4 clutch discs, just like this. Your street car only has 1 clutch disc. As the clutch bends, these arms apply progressively more and more pressure. Now, it wasn't enough to just tighten up the unit, because that would cause the car to smoke the tires right off the starting line. Here's what they did. They added 3 additional pressure arms. Only they restrain them with a throwout bearing here so that they don't do a thing off the starting line. Now, when the driver gets about 200 feet out, he has this valve inside the car. The car is carrying an air pressure system. All he has to do 200 feet out is punch that. It releases this throwout bearing and applies about 1,500 pounds additional pressure in the clutch. The drivers say the acceleration feeling is incredible.
And incredible technology here at the NHRA Chief Auto Parts Winternationals. And that technology contributed to the quickest 16 cars ever to qualify in a funny car field.
Ed McCullough, Paul, of him in California, won 2 races last year. He also has a lock-up clutch. He used it to beat Tom McHugh in round 1.
He faces the reigning world champion, Kenny Bernstein, who beat John Force in the first round.
And, Paul, this is the first time in many races that Kenny Bernstein has been backed into a corner. McCullough ran quicker in the first round. He has put Bernstein in a lane he doesn't want to run. Bernstein has to have mental questions about the condition of this engine. And off the mark, it is Ed McCullough smoking the tires. This is all over. Kenny Bernstein will move into the semifinals.
McCullough's run goes up in smoke. Kenny Bernstein with a 5:54, 265 miles an hour. McCullough's numbers are of no consequence whatsoever. So Kenny Bernstein moves ahead as Ed McCullough drives his way out of the field.
Interesting pair up next, Paul. In the far lane is a young driver from Oklahoma City, Steve Hodkinson, trying to make a name for himself and maybe attract a corporate sponsor. And he will be up against a real veteran professional, Dale Pulte, who normally campaigns his War Eagle car. But this weekend, Pulte is driving for a local team. They're called the Over the Hill Gang, and they only come out of the barn twice a year for the 2 races that are held here at the L.A. County Fairgrounds.
Steve Hodkinson is a young man who pays his own way in the sport. In fact, he comes here only with a couple of heads and a few spare pistons. As they come up to the line now, Hodkinson turns to the left. He's heading back east to Oklahoma. Apparently, not enough parts and certainly not enough time. It'll be a bye run for Dale Pulte. So the over-the-hill gang gets a break, and they're going to take advantage of it just as easy as they can run it down the strip. They don't want to run the risk of breaking anything in this machine. So Dale Pulte will move ahead. Slow pass at 10:92. Back at the shutdown area, let's join Steve and Kenny Bernstein.
There was so little communication between crew members. Nobody saying a word. Everybody knowing what to do.
Everybody has a job. They know what we got to do. They know how much time we've got to do it in, and to get the car in shape is you have to be in a hurry.
So there was no compromising of preparing the car for this round at all.
Not only that, the fact that we had to run McCullough that had run a 5:53 that had a 10th on us, Dale had to really step on this car to make it come around.
And back in the top fuel pits, it's Kim LaHaye, daughter to Dick LaHaye, as she is making the final adjustments on his car as they prepare to face Don Garlits. We'll be back with more NHRA drag racing.
The Pro Stock Thunderbird of 7-time NHRA champion Bob Glidden uses just one make of tire, the Goodyear Racing Eagle. And every Thunderbird Turbo Coupe leaves Ford with just one make of tire, the Goodyear Eagle VR Gatorback Street Radial. And not by coincidence, because Goodyear makes better high-performance tires for the track and for the street. Goodyear Eagles. They'll take you home the quick way or to the winner's circle.
Goodyear, take me home. Why do 32 million Americans protect their engines with Quaker State motor oil? Because they're car-caring people who want only the best for their engines. Here, Quaker State quality stands up to the constant pounding, heat, and friction that breaks down motor oil. You can see Quaker State quality, the pure protection that comes from our state-of-the-art formula that can't be beat.
Quaker State people, reaching for the best.
Time to go, boys. You've been in there long enough.
Hey, we're not even tired. I feel good.
So I've checked the mileage, Andy.
Hey, we're the auto lights. We're guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
I feel good. Yeah, 2 years no matter how far we go.
But no spark plug guarantees that.
We do. Yeah, we're the auto lights.
But
So go pull the plug on somebody else.
Okay.
I feel good.
NHRA Chief Auto Parts Winternationals as Kenny Bernstein's funny car being towed back to the hot pits for routine maintenance in between the rounds. And out on the line, again, funny cars. Australia's Graham Cowan versus Tim Gross.
Well, Paul, if there was a long-distance award, it would go to the Aussie Raider. It takes 3 weeks on the high seas to ship that car from Sydney, Australia, to the port of Los Angeles. This is the beginning of their second U.S. tour. They're up against the Southern Californian Tim Gross, just now completing the long, smoky burnouts.
Steve, at the same time, back in the hot pit area, Dan Pastorini can now relax because he's out of the run for Top Fuel, autographing a few footballs for the little fans. They are having their problems with that new lockup clutch, and Dan Pastorini may be one of the victims of those troubles.
Indeed, there's an adaptation process the driver has to go through. And, Paul, we got a problem. Tim Gross, apparently no brakes. The defending Winter Nationals champion goes down the racetrack. He will not compete in this round. Tim Gross will take this hard.
So this is an upset. He was to have faced Graham Cowan, who beat Raymond Beadle in the first round, Beadle coming out of a one-year retirement. So now, Cowan on the line. He takes a bye run available to him. And the only question is, will he run it hard or soft? Well, he's decided apparently to take it easy on the equipment and just get it into the next round. He could have also tried to run nice and hard and go for lane choice, but the track today appears to be very equal in both lanes.
The most equal, Paul, I have ever seen this fairgrounds facility. He did the right thing, conserve his equipment. Back in the pits, well, this is the crew for Darrell Gwynn, being led by his father, Jerry, getting that car ready for the semifinals in Top Fuel. This is the first year that they have run as a team along with the funny car of Kenny Bernstein. Pretty formidable operation.
And they're preparing their car to face Joe Amato. Meanwhile, out on the strip, it is Mark Oswald as he's ready to take on John Martin.
And at this race, Mark Oswald in the far lane debuting a brand new Thunderbird funny car. A beautiful machine. He beat Tom Hoover in the first round. He is the speed record holder in NHRA competition at 268 miles per hour.
He faces John Martin, who beat Billy Meyer in the first round. Martin has never won a Nationals event. He sits in the near lane in that perfectly plain white machine. On the far side is Mark Oswald.
The two are staged and ready. The green light is on. They leave right together. Mark Oswald is smoking the tires. Another tremendous upset. A heating and air conditioning contractor from just a few miles away in Upland, California, will go to the semifinals.
John Martin with a 583, 209 miles an hour, upsets Mark Oswald. As we look at the start once again, that is Oswald on the far side. You see already smoke beginning to show, indicating that those tires have lost traction. Where there's no traction, there's no run. So John Martin takes the victory. Right now, he's at the far end with Steve Evans.
Well, here's a fresh face for our Sports World drag racing coverage. John Martin, in a big day of upset, should go to the semifinals. Great.
I'm so excited. This motor we had to change after the first round. Didn't even have a chance to fire it. We were late. Just went up there and says, let's go for it. I'm so happy I can't even talk.
Your best day in national event drag racing, that's for sure.
Yes, it is. We're really pleased, and I'm just ecstatic.
So that sets the stage for a semifinal round in funny car, where John Martin will face Graham Cowan, and Kenny Bernstein will have the lane choice over Dale Poldy. Ready for Pro Stock now, and a prediction of another great season, the quickest 16 qualifiers in the history of the sport.
The Pro Stock cars, Paul, use a custom-built tube chassis. They're allowed to weigh no less than 2,350 pounds, 500 cubic inch engines. There's no superchargers here. These are 4-barrel carburetors with gasoline in the tank. This is second-round competition. In the near lane is the Firebird from Bradenton, Florida, driven by this man, Tony Christian. He beat Gary Brown in the first round.
He faces Indiana's Don Coons, who beat Bruce Allen in the first round on a red light.
Kuntz is in the far lane. He has an Oldsmobile Forenza. He also has far more experience than Tony Christian. Now, these cars leave at a very high RPM, over 8,000. They just sidestep the clutch. They have to make 3 gear changes down the quarter mile. And leaving too soon is Tony Christian. You saw the red light on the Christmas tree. And the car in the near lane that appears to be winning has been disqualified. The win will go to Don Kuntz. And whoa, getting squirrely when the parachute came in. It's Tony Christian, but he maintains control.
Christian didn't really need to cut the light so close. He came off the run with a 7:59 compared to Kuntz's 7:67. But here you see it on the left-hand side of your screen. Christian just leaves too early. The race is already over.
And our next pairing already heating up their tires. They do it a little differently than the funny cars and the dragsters, locking up the front brakes to sit there and just spin those rear tires. In the near lane is Darrell Alderman. He'll be wheeling a Camaro. It is from Kentucky. And in round number 1, Darrell Alderman beat Pro Stock driver Lee Dean to advance to this round 2.
He faces Larry Morgan from Ohio, who beat Joe Lapone in the first round and is driving in his first Pro Stock race.
Larry Morgan's right hand already on that lever that controls the first to second gear shift, other levers for third and fourth gear in these Lenco transmissions.
Larry Morgan launches Alderman with a problem. Alderman breaks on the line as Larry Morgan pours on the power, sucks it down the quarter mile at a 7:57, 183 miles an hour. Darrell Alderman, something broke in the car at the line, and he just simply motors his way down to the end and pulls off of the strip. And the victory goes to Larry Morgan. Back up at the starting line, the reigning world champion, #1, Bob Glidden, with 52 victories to his credit. More than any other man in the sport. Bob Glidden, the reigning champion from Whiteland, Indiana. And a bit earlier, Steve Evans, back in the hot pit area, had an opportunity to take a close look at the car.
With funny cars starting to look more like spaceships than automobiles, NHRA is really cracking down on the pro stock body regulations to ensure they maintain a stock appearance. This is Bob Glidden's brand new 1987 Ford Thunderbird. Now, they can still use fiberglass front fenders and hood, but they better be exact replica of factory parts. The rear fenders and the roof must be steel factory parts. Now, 1 year ago, here at the Winternationals, Bob's Thunderbird then had very little rear bumper. NHRA now says, we want a stock-appearing rear bumper. You can notch it just enough for the wheelie bars. Now, how serious are they really getting? Take a look at this. Bob put just a minor little bulge in the steel rear fender here because the tire was rubbing. They said by the next race, this has got to be out of here. That means he's got to narrow the rear end. That's time-consuming and expensive. Bob doesn't mind. He completely agrees with these rules and wants to maintain the integrity of these automobiles.
Glidden will face Butch Leal, one of the funny car pioneers who came over to pro stock in 1970 and is perfection at the starting line.
He better be today, Paul, because Bob Glidden comes to the line with a performance edge. He has run consistently quicker than the driver in the near lane. It's Ford in the far lane. It is Pontiac in the near lane. Two veteran drivers. Butch Leal has been in this category since about 1970. Their stage's already. Leal is off the mark first. Look at Leal. He's got a car length lead. But here comes Glidden alongside. Glidden and Leal side by side. The win goes to Butch Leal. His 7:52, a good deal slower than Glidden's 7:45, but the whole shot pays off for Butch Leal. Wow.
Watch the white car on the left side of your screen. He roars off the line, cut an incredible light against Bob Glidden, and that made the difference in victory, despite the fact that Glidden was faster through the quarter mile. Coming to the end now, you see Glidden roaring, trying to catch up, but he cannot get the job done. So Butch Leal moves ahead, and right now, he's in the shutdown area with Steve.
The master of the hole shot has struck again. Butch, your 7:52 beat his 7:45. He's stunned.
Oh, it was coming. I watched him all the way down. About third gear, he started coming, and I said, come on, baby, hold him off. And, you know, Bob had a little trouble here at this race, and he worked real hard to get ready for this last round, and his car worked evidently a lot better. And, you know, once in a while you catch them when they work real hard off guard, and I tried the best I could, and evidently it pulled off this time.
So Butch Leal moves ahead as we continue with the quickest field of pro stock ever. Warren Johnson is ready to face Gordy Rivera. Warren Johnson in the Oldsmobile, the only man ever to top 190 miles an hour in a pro stock car.
Gordy Rivera from Arizona, still stiff and sore from a crash 2 weeks ago in Phoenix that destroyed his pro stock car. This is a borrowed machine with Gordy's engine. He didn't want to miss any World Championship points at the season opener. He'll have his own machine ready for the next stop on the trail, the Gator Nationals in Gainesville, Florida, the last weekend in March. So it's Warren Johnson for Oldsmobile, Gordy Rivera in the far lane, a General Motors product. They are staged and ready.
Rivera jumps off with a hole shot. Now Johnson pulls the power on. Can he get past Rivera? Midway, they're even. Now Warren Johnson continues to power and takes the victory with a 7:46, 186 miles an hour to Gordy Rivera's 7.50. The semifinal round is now set for pro stock. Warren Johnson will face Larry Morgan, and Don Kuntz will take on Butch Leal.
There's a dumb mistake even I make sometimes. I tune up a car, but it doesn't run right. One spark plug wire wasn't pushed down tight. Autolite Power Seal wires click on so you know they're tight. Autolite Power Seals, the wires with the right connections.
A leading consumer magazine has just cleared the air. Of all oil filters tested, the new Fram Wear Guard was rated best. Fram, You can pay a little now or a lot later.
Why do 32 million Americans protect their engines with Quaker State motor oil? Because they're car-carrying people who want only the best for their engines. Here, Quaker State quality stands up to the constant pounding, heat, and friction that breaks down motor oil. You can see Quaker State quality, the pure protection that comes from our state-of-the-art formula that can't be beat.
In the funny car pits, Bram Cowan's Australian crew does routine maintenance on his funny car, ready for the next round. In the pro stock pits, it's a little bit quieter for Bob Glidden. His day is already over, and he's now with Steve Evans.
You had to change motors between first and second round?
We broke a rod the first round. Not only did we change engines, we've been having a lot of trouble getting down the track, tire shake and so on. We went to an organic type clutch. We had to change the suspension and made several changes. That's not really an excuse for what happened. I simply screwed up.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Steve.
Day is over for defending world champion Bob Glidden. It's a record crowd at the NHRA Chief Auto Parts Winternationals, ready for the semifinal round in Top Fuel as Don Garlits is ready to face Dick LaHaye.
And Paul, both of these teams for the new season have stepped up to twin magnetos and bigger fuel systems, and Garlits has also gone to the lockup clutch we talked so much about. This man, Dick LaHaye, has not. Be interesting to see if that could make any kind of a difference, and you can bet that Kim LaHaye, crew chief in her dad's car, probably has one for the next race.
So the first real challenge between the lockup and the older regular clutch. Don Garlits on the far side. It is Dick LaHaye in the red car on the near side. Both move up to stage.
Garlits is away first by a few hundredths. LaHaye still in the fight. Garlits locks up that clutch and moves out a full car length. It is Big Daddy Don Garlits going into the final round by only 200ths of a second. 5:36 to a 5:38. Big speed for Garlits on the board, 270 miles per hour.
And it appears that the lockup clutch made the difference here. Garlits does come off the line first. LaHaye pulls even. And then suddenly, Garlits just begins to surge ahead. That's as he kicks in the last fingers on that lockup clutch. Let's go to the far end now and Steve.
That may well have been the quickest side-by-side drag race in the history of the sport. A 5:36 for you, Don Garlits, a 5:38 for Dick LaHaye.
Yeah, it was a good race. We left pretty good. I think I had him a little bit out
Just a
of here,
bit.
and it kind of stayed that way.
You said earlier you wanted some 5:30s. Well, there they are.
It's going to take them. I mean, we got lucky in the first couple of rounds with the guys not running as good, but we needed it right there.
The other run of the semifinal round, Top Fuel in the near lane. Darrell Gwynn as he faces Joe Amato.
As their front wheels move into the beams, the first thing that happens on the Christmas tree, the small yellow lights on top. That's the pre-stage, just an aid to let them know they're almost on the starting line. Then the second set of yellow lights come on right now. 0.4 of a second later, the green light, and away first is Darrell Gwynn. But quickly in the race is Joe Amato. Joe Amato by a full car length as Darrell Gwynn's engine goes away. Amato wins it at 5:50, 264 miles per hour. Not a particularly good time, though, Paul.
It looked like it was going to be a good race for Darrell Gwynn. He came off of the line first with great reaction time, but almost immediately the motor began to go away, and Joe Amato began to pull away. As Darrell Gwynn fell behind, Joe Amato went on to victory through the lights first. But Amato is 0.2 of a second slower than Garlits. Let's go to Steve now.
Put more nitro in it, tighten up the clutch. What kinds of things do you do to find 0.2?
Well, we ran a 5:37 in the first round. We've been changing some parts trying to find it, and apparently we went the wrong way on what we've changed. Now we'll have to go back and change some of the parts maybe the other way. I hope they come back up on another 5:30 and anybody's game in the final.
See you then.
So they're set for the final round in Top Fuel. Joe Amato will face Don Garlits. We'll be right back. From the record crowd for Don Garlits. They love to watch him here. He's won this event 4 different times, but the last time he won was 1975. Semifinal round, Pro Stock Eliminator.
And look at the concentration on the face of Don Coons. His Oldsmobile Forenza will be up against the Pontiac Trans Am of Butch Leal. Now, these two drivers come to the starting line pretty equal, Paul, as far as performance is concerned. If there is an edge, it may go to Butch Leal as a driver. In the second round of Pro Stock competition, he hole-shotted world champion Bob Glidden 0.07 of a second advantage off the starting line. That's a lot.
In the meantime, the adrenaline may be pumping in this man, Don Coons, who is looking for his first Nationals victory. Butch Leal, on the other hand, has 3 victories to his credit. They come up to stage.
And they do so very carefully, Paul, locking up those front brakes with an electronic button on the shift handle so the car doesn't accidentally move through the beams and foul start. Don Coons, Oldsmobile, far lane, near lane, the only non-Oldsmobile left in competition. The Pontiac Trans Am of Butch Leal, and it is Don Coons away first. It is Don Coons with a slide hole shot. Butch Leal is behind, but catching up. They are door handle to door handle, and it is Butch Leal in a real squeaker. A 751 to a 755. Identical miles an hour of 183.
Coons read the light just a little bit better, got away first, but then Butch Leal began to pour on the power, caught up by the end of the run, and Butch Leal has won over Don Coons and will move to the final round in Pro Stock.
Even though they're both trying to concentrate on just their own lane, the peripheral vision shows them the other drivers there. I doubt that either man knew who won. It was that close.
So that brings up the next round of the semifinals. Pro Stock Eliminator Warren Johnson to face Larry Morgan.
Now, Warren Johnson's car looks identical to that of Don Coons because they both have the same affiliation with sponsors. In the near lane is the rookie driver as far as Pro Stock is concerned, Larry Morgan. And it is Morgan away first. Morgan by 0.02 of a second, but look at the muscle being displayed in the far lane. Warren Johnson, it's not even close. Johnson, the quickest elapsed time we've seen throughout this entire event, 7.40 seconds, 186 miles per hour.
Set for the final pairing, Pro Stock Eliminator at the Chief Auto Parts Winternationals. Warren Johnson will have lane choice over Butch Leal.
And here in the pit area of Big Daddy Don Garlett, the Hemi engine is going back together. The cylinder head's being tightened by Chief Mechanic Herb Parks. The supercharger fuel injection yet to be installed. A lot of work to be done in a very few minutes.
Kenny Bernstein straps into his Buick funny car, ready for the semifinal round. It is now this incredible new machine against this older machine of Dale Poldy.
Indeed, Paul, the car under Poldy was built 6 years ago, and in drag racing time, that makes it a bit of a dinosaur. But one thing that is totally equal, and that is the experience of these drivers. Kenny Bernstein, Dale Poldy, both are seasoned professionals. I guarantee you that going through Dale Poldy's mind right now is concentration. Get a hole shot, that's probably his only chance.
Both cars the line, and indeed, Poldy really pulls out the hole shot. Bernstein now charging on. Bernstein comes back, Poldy at the line, and Kenny Bernstein with a 556, 263 miles an hour, takes out Dale Poldy. But as you look at the black car on the right side, he jumps way out in front of Kenny Bernstein. What may have made the difference, once again, is the lock-up clutch. It rides in Bernstein's car. It is not in Poldy's. And here, mid-course, here comes Bernstein to take the win.
But only by 1 car length. What a scare Dale Poldy put into it. Now, who's going to race Kenny Bernstein in the funny car final? Will it be the Aussie Raider in the near lane, Graham Cowan, Sydney, Australia? Or could it be the local driver in the plain Jane white car, John A. Martin, Upland, California? These two drivers have been running very similar elapsed times. This could be a fine race. Remember, the winner will meet Kenny Bernstein in the final round. The loser goes home. And for Graham Cowan, that's a long trip.
The chips definitely down. 2 men who have never been to a final round. Cowan comes off the line first. John Martin drifts over almost into the wall, but it'll be Cowan the winner. The first time a foreigner will go to the final round in funny car with a 576, 259 miles an hour to John Martin's losing 592. Again, Cowan on the near side comes out of the box first. Then as John Martin lays the power in, his car begins to drift to its left, almost into the wall. He comes out of the throttle to gather it back up, and Cowan goes on to the victory. Let's go to the far end, and Steve.
A 576 at almost 260 miles per hour.
Yeah, well, we're a little bit down in the ET. We're up there with the speed, but to try and find a couple of tenths to get that red car.
Yeah, I don't have to tell you who you race. Do you just go out there and play your own game and maybe hope that he stumbles?
Yeah, that's all we can do, Steve. So we came here to have fun, and we're doing that, and we're in the final. What can I say?
The Australian flags fly as it'll be a mechanized America's Cup with high horsepower. Graham Cowan set to face Kenny Bernstein here at the LA County Fairgrounds.
The Pro Stock Thunderbird of 7-time NHRA champion Bob Glidden uses just one make of tire, the Goodyear Racing Eagle. And every Thunderbird Turbo Coupe leaves Ford with just one make of tire, the Goodyear Eagle VR Gatorback Street Radial. And not by coincidence, because Goodyear makes better high-performance tires for the track and for the street. Goodyear Eagles. They'll take you home the quick way or to the winner's circle.
Goodyear, take me home.
Today's small cars are tougher than ever on oil. Their high-compression engines not only rev high, they can run hotter than regular small car engines. Their searing heat can begin to break down an oil immediately. That's why there's Castrol, the only leading motor oil that in every grade provides maximum protection against viscosity and thermal breakdown. So use Castrol before your engine does something to get you heated up. Castrol, engineered for today's smaller cars.
Quality parts travel with a fast crowd. Like funny car champion Mark Oswald. Pro stock champs Ricky Smith and Bob Glidden. Off-road champ Manny Esquera. Top NASCAR driver Ricky Rudd. Quality parts for all makes of cars and trucks. Motorcraft exceeds the need.
Are here at the Winternationals in record numbers, and are they pumped as we're ready for the final rounds? Let's go back to the hot pits.
There's an engine change going on in Joe Amato's camp before the Top Fuel final, but for reasons totally different than that we saw earlier with Kenny Bernstein. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this engine. It's just that Tim Richards, the crew chief over here on the far side in the hat, feels that to get the 2/10 it'll take to beat Don Garlits, he's going to put in a fresh engine, one he hopes will run just a bit stronger.
Cool professional work as the minutes tick away to the Top Fuel final. Ready for the final run in Pro Stock. On the far side, Warren Johnson as he faces Butch Leal. Leal with the hole shot. Johnson now on the charge. Johnson even with Leal at the halfway point. Now Johnson picks up the speed, picks up the power, and Warren Johnson comes through. 7:42, 187 miles an hour with the win. Warren Johnson has won Pro Stock at the NHRA Winternationals.
Butch Leal with a 7:52. The story on the starting line. It seems that Butch Leal's mind is somehow wired to that Christmas tree. Another of his patented hole shots. He was off the mark, 300ths ahead of Warren Johnson, but as you saw, it was just not enough. The muscle of the Oldsmobile Forenza in the far lane was just too much for Butch. What a Pro Stock final. Paul?
Up on one side, the flag of Australia. If you come across to the other side, Kenny Bernstein has the United States flag. It's a battle of the countries in the funny cars. Let's watch.
The first ever international final in NHRA funny car history. I don't know where Bernstein and crew found time to find the flag, but somehow they did. Bernstein is first to heat up the tires.
But Steve Evans down here at the starting line. Graham Cowan's engine sounds a little ragged, and his crew is definitely concerned about it. So we have to keep an eye on that machine. Something could be wrong in the engine compartment on Graham Cowan's car as he now begins to back up. At the far end, Butch Leal congratulates Warren Johnson, who is a definite challenger for the world title this year. The championship round for funny car at the NHRA Chief Auto Parts Winternationals. Graham Cowan's car definitely running ragged as he comes to the line facing Kenny Bernstein.
Now look at how clean the exhaust pipes are firing on Kenny Bernstein's car. Unlike Graham Cowan, he is throwing raw fuel into the atmosphere, definitely not firing properly on all 8 cylinders as they move up to stage.
Both cars up to the line now. Bernstein the far side, Cowan the near side. America's Cup of Drag Racing as Cowan sits ready in the cockpit. There's the amber light. They're running, and Kenny Bernstein grabs the whole shot. And an explosion in Cowan's car. Fire continues to burn. Kenny Bernstein comes across the line, the winner of 5:49.264. Let's check, though, Graham Cowan to make sure he's all right as the car rolls slowly to a stop. A tremendous engine explosion. Kenny Bernstein came off the line first, making horsepower, and then suddenly, kaboom, away went the engine in Cowan's car. Apparently, a valve will pull down, allowing fire to get back up into the induction system, and that causes the explosion. Tremendous fire. Fortunately, the safety equipment is excellent. Let's go to the far end to meet the new champion, Kenny Bernstein.
Kenny Bernstein begins his march towards what could be a third world championship in funny car drag racing. What a way to start a season, huh?
Well, it's super, Steve. You bet. Anytime you can win one of these things, as hard as it is with all the other cars and competitors, it's tough to do it. But today, Dale Armstrong and the crew did a superb job, and just glad to be here.
Stars and Stripes triumphant again as Kenny Bernstein wins his first Winter Nationals. Now let's go to Steve with the runner-up.
Grandma, you know how disappointed you must be, especially looking at all those destroyed parts, but more than not winning this title.
Yeah, I'm disappointed, but it wasn't a tune-up. Somebody put a line on the wrong valve, and the thing leaned out, you know, so it's just an error in the pits. I know that the tune-up's okay, but it's too late now.
Well, yeah, on behalf of everybody here and the thousands of people in the grandstands, thanks for just a tremendous day of racing. You had an awful lot of people on your side.
Yeah, so one good thing about it, we get runner-up money to cover the expense anyway, so we'll be back again.
Indeed.
Well, there he sits, the Big Daddy, patiently waiting for the final round of Top Fuel. Now, the Big Daddy had lane choice coming into this round, so he's exactly where he wants to be, former world champion. In the meantime, on the other side, another former world champion, Joe Amato. He sits and waits, but he is a little impatient. He watched while the funny cars ran his lane get oiled down very badly. He has no idea what kind of a job is being done on it, but he hopes it's good. We're ready for the final round in Top Fuel. We'll be back right after this.
Motorcraft quality parts travel with a fast crowd. Like funny car champion Mark Oswald. Pro stock champs Ricky Smith and Bob Glidden. Off-road champ Manny Esquera. Top NASCAR driver Ricky Rudd. Quality parts for all makes of cars and trucks. Motorcraft exceeds the need.
Today's small cars are tougher than ever on oil. Their high-compression engines not only rev high, they can run hotter than regular small car engines. Their searing heat can begin to break down an oil immediately. That's why there's Castrol, the only leading motor oil that in every grade provides maximum protection against viscosity and thermal breakdown. So use Castrol before your engine does something to get you heated up. Castrol, engineered for today's smaller cars.
For the final round at the NHRA Chief Auto Parts Winternationals. Final round, Top Fuel. Don Garlitz on the far lane, Amato on the near lane.
Garlitz has no idea what to expect from Amato. Amato has that new power plant installed. He hopes that it's going to be enough to make up the performance difference. Her part locks down the canopy on the Garlitz Streamliner. Now, Don Garlitz this week in Vol has done no mechanical work other than inspections. They have not broken a single part or piece in many laps down this quarter mile.
Don Garlitz has been the world champion the past 2 years. Joe Amato was the champion in 1984, so two longtime veterans up to face one another. They both know all the tricks. Joe Amato inches up to the line to stage down. Garlitz on the far side, ready for the final run at the Winter Nationals.
The appearance of Don Garlitz on the line can intimidate some drivers, not Joe Amato. There's nobody hit rather right. And we have a clean start. They're off right together. Garlitz suddenly with a car length lead. He extends it. Amato burns his engine out. Doug Garlitz crews delirious. Low lap. Time of the event, 5.29 seconds, 270 miles per hour.
Herb Parks and the crew, they say we did it. Now they come off the line nice and clean. though Garlitz has the whole shot coming out. Still, they're even, but if you look at the flames on Joe Amato's car, it shows you that already the engine is beginning to burn down. Let's join Steve Evans as the new champion.
You can hear the horns blowing in the background. The fans saluting Big Daddy Don Garlitz as they leave the Los Angeles County Fairgrounds. And I have a belated birthday present for you. 5:29 in the final round.
Very good. Felt good.
270 miles per hour.
Good.
Before the year is over, will we see a new revolutionary car to go with it?
Yeah, the body's being built right now, and we're going to go back home and build the chassis. It'll be a chassis just like this, but with a full body be covering the rear wheels and the engine. I mean, we don't know that it's going to do it, but, you know, we want to try it.
You always keep trying.
Thank you.
Don Garlitz, Winternationals champion, 5:29.
55 years old and still tough to beat. For Steve Evans, this is Paul Page. So long from the Winternationals in Pomona, California.